this on. And we are back. Thanks everybody for holding on here with us these past couple weeks. Just to give you everyone a little bit of an update of what happened while we were on the proverbial bye week the past 2 weeks. I did welcome my first son into the world on October 17th. Had to get my feet under me with being a new dad, and just had to take a couple weeks off to get used to fatherhood. So I appreciate you guys holding on here with us during that time. It's exciting. Got a little Buckeye here with us. He's now 3-0 in his life as a little Buckeye, so we're happy about that. Um, we're now almost, I mean, we only have 3 weeks left, so this is going to be like that mid-late season review of the Big Ten. I'll just open up the floor to you guys to get your, initial thoughts here so far of the season.
Ugh.
Yeah, no joke. I mean, I guess my initial thoughts is the West is exactly what we thought the West was going to be.
A
Trash.
disappointment. I mean,
Yeah.
Wisconsin's been a huge disappointment in
Yep.
my eyes, personally.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, Losing to Indiana this week, and yeah, I mean, they
Definitely did
squeaked
not have
against
that one.
Illinois.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Illinois is big disappointment for me.
That's
Um,
Rutgers, fourth best team in the league.
yeah. The only bright spots for me in the Big Ten are Rutgers.
Yep.
And then obviously Michigan and Ohio State are who we thought they'd be.
Absolutely. I
That
mean, just
defense is
going
unreal.
just going down the line here for our preseason Rutgers totals. We had them. Ethan, you had them at 3-9. Drew, you had them at 4-8. Corey and I both had them at
Mhm.
3-9. Boy, were we wrong.
Yeah.
Craig Schiano has those Scarlet Knights there playing top-notch football. Um, we had another disappointment, in my opinion, here. Was Maryland. We all had them at 9-3, 8-4. Corey had them at 10-2. I had them at 8-4, along with Drew. Ethan had them at 9-3. They are currently sitting at 5-4
Yeah,
4-game
and
losing streak.
with a 4-game losing
yeah,
streak.
and they may lose. They could be feasibly lose out, but they're guaranteed at least one more loss. So get that bowl
Mm-hmm.
game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, how would you? If we would have started, and I know you just covered all the wins and losses and
yeah.
our predictions, but if I would have told you that there's five bowl eligible teams in the Big Ten, and one of them's Rutgers, and then the other three are the Big Three, four. I mean,
So you have Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State bowl eligible right now.
Rutgers and Iowa.
Rutgers and Iowa are bowl eligible. Yeah, that's
You told me to pick five teams. I would not have picked those five teams. Well, three of them, but
yeah. You wouldn't have picked Rutgers and Iowa to be those two guys.
I would have said Wisconsin and maybe Illinois, maybe Maryland at this point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Drew.
Another surprise, the Northwestern Wildcats.
Let's
Uh,
go.
they were the
Love it.
cover 3 podcast team of the month last month. Sitting at 4-5. I definitely did not expect 4 wins from this team.
No.
So
Listen,
way to go, Cats.
two games out of first, three to play. Indy's looming. All I'm saying is let's go to Indy again.
Yep. So Northwestern sitting at 4-5 right now. Drew, Ethan, and I both had that. All three of us had him at 3-9. Corey had him at 2-10. So they're definitely exceeding our expectations from our preseason records. Um, Michigan State's just abysmal. We all thought that they would, be on the cusp of a bowl eligible team. They're sitting at 3-6.
Still
Ethan and
possible.
Yeah, Ethan and Corey had him at 4-8. Drew and I had him at 5-7. So they're kind of in that realm right now of where we kind of thought they would be. Um,
Yeah.
an
Um,
Another big surprise to me is I thought Minnesota would be a bowl eligible team right now.
I don't know. Let's look at their schedule. The only game they lost that they shouldn't have is probably Northwestern.
Yep.
I mean, which I guess technically would make them bowl eligible right now at 6-3, but
Yeah.
you know,
And yesterday they lost to Illinois by one, but
Yep.
yesterday they had the game, man. I was watching that. Their offense is so goddamn awful. It's, they
Okay,
just they had the win, they couldn't seal it.
who's a worse offense? Iowa or Minnesota?
I
Michigan
mean,
State.
Who
Michigan. Oof,
who in the
God,
Big Ten has a good offense? I think that's easier. Does anyone in the Big Ten have a good offense
I don't think so.
or
good
great?
offense.
Well, let's use the
Ooh.
word great.
I
Oh
don't
no, I
I
will
don't
No.
think
physically tell you no.
Okay, now
yeah.
let's use the word good.
I think there's two teams that
Maybe
have
Michigan.
I would say the top
Maybe Penn
three,
State, the big three.
the big
Yeah.
three have good offenses.
I don't know.
My thing with yeah, because I mean I can't I mean Michigan's obviously blowing people out, you know what I mean? And scoring a lot of points, playing great defense, but I mean when we look at their schedule, you're
They've got
talking East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, Rutgers, obviously, but Nebraska, Minnesota, Indiana, Michigan State, Purdue,
yeah, they should be beating these teams the way that they're beating
beating
these
them.
teams.
Yeah,
They're running clock games in the third quarter type games.
yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm really interested to see next weekend when Michigan has to travel to Happy Valley, face off against Drew Aller and Penn State with James Franklin, how they what do they look like in an actual tough game?
I'm
Because
really
this is the
sad
first
that
time they'll be tested.
yeah, I'm really sad that didn't get game day. Actually, they're going to Georgia.
Georgia Ole Miss.
I don't know. Whoever Georgia's got next week.
I think it's Ole
Week
Miss.
11, yeah, Ole Miss, which is
Yeah,
fair, but
it's a
you
top
know,
10 matchup probably.
it's basically the same thing. It's just the SEC
Yep.
bias.
For ESPN, I mean, with them having a TV deal though with
Yeah,
the SEC, I kind of expect them to go to them more now than really spread it out. But that's why we have big noon kickoff on Fox.
let's
And
go
they're going to Happy Valley for that
as they
game,
should.
as they should. It's the biggest Big Ten game of the week. Um, who do you what do you guys think of the Big Ten so far? Um, are we one of the bet? Are we next to the SEC? I mean, I guess you would have to say the SEC is probably the best conference in football right now. Do you think the
Uh,
Big Ten's there, or do you think the Pac-12 overtook them this year?
I think that if we're talking today, the best Big Ten teams are playing on the West Coast. I think
Yep.
that uh, the defense is very good, but this conference just it's devoured itself this season. I don't know really how to describe it. It's been poor. The Big Ten West play is poor. Iowa's poor. Now, there's just, I guess, this year, their real Achilles heel of the Big Ten is quarterback play.
Yep.
I don't think that there is any substantial quarterback play. I know that I was on the Drew Aller bandwagon. He hasn't lived up to expectations. I think JJ McCarthy's overhyped. Kyle McCord has yet to do what and I lost his
CJ,
name. Well,
CJ,
no, no,
and all those
no.
guys did before.
The Alabama quarterback. I
Milrow.
literally, yeah, Jim Milrow came out of his shell. Milrow
Yeah.
took games over. He started off the season very poor, developed, evolved, looks great. Last night looked fantastic. Of course, so did Jaden Daniels, but
Yeah, I
Um,
think I
I
think
think that the
we're
Big Ten quarterback play is very poor, and that's
yeah,
what's hurting it.
absolutely. I think where Milrow has really shined just watching last week's game is he's using his legs more now to spark the offense and try to instead of trying to make that Tua throw or that Jalen
Mhm.
Hurts throw, he's more of I gotta, and I think Nick Saban just said, hey, you don't need to be Tua, you don't need to be Jalen Hurts, you need to be Milrow. And if that
Make it work.
means running the ball, using your legs on those plays, then that's what you got to do. You know,
Mhm.
Yeah, he looked great last night. I mean,
he
that
did.
game was fun until it kind of fell apart at the end. But
That game was a good game until the tip drill interception on the first possession out of the half for
yeah,
LSU,
that was a
which
long game.
isn't, and if I'm not mistaken, that's the play that
He got
Daniels got
wrecked.
wrecked on.
That was a dirty hit,
Yeah,
but it's football.
it's football. Um, Drew, your thoughts?
Um, I think this is a very disappointing season for the Big Ten. I think outside the top three, our conference is about as mid as they get. I think we're behind the Pac 12. I think we might be behind the Big 12. Um, maybe I'm just
Hmm.
saying that because I've had a lot more fun watching Big 12 football and Pac 12 football than watching Big 10 football. It's been a slug getting through most of these Big 10 games.
Absolutely.
I think the conference has taken a step back, or maybe everyone is just elevated. I don't know.
Maybe there's more parity within the league than there has been previously,
I think it's a damn shame we're breaking up the Pac 12. What a great
Yeah,
especially
conference
after
that is
this,
right now.
especially after this season.
Yeah.
That actually leads me into another question. I mean, is bringing in USC, Oregon, Washington, and UCLA, is that the refresh, like a hitting like a refresh button for the Big Ten that they desperately need, where you're no longer just okay, well, going into the year, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State are your top three guys to, favorites to go to Indy. Whoever they face in the West, good luck type deal, I mean, that's what it seems like it's this year as well as whoever wins the East is going to go out and destroy that West team in Indianapolis. Do you guys feel like it is like a much needed addition with those four teams coming in?
I don't I think it is kind of needed. Like this has been a two-team league for years, maybe three-team. I don't think it's completely necessary, but I think it definitely makes the conference stronger and really helps, especially bringing in these programs that are kicking ass right now.
Yeah,
yeah. I think that as long, see, my only fear is, and I know that these teams know how to recruit. Oregon's not going to fall off. USC is not going to fall off. But these flash in the pan years that we're getting from Washington, when we're getting from UCLA, are those going to be basically in NFL terms contract years? You're playing out
okay,
of your mind to get that new contract, and then you're
yeah,
just going to fall back into mediocrity. And I think that we are seeing a few of these teams playing contract seasons. Oregon State, Washington, UCLA. I think that granted they can recruit and they're big time schools, but I think the only two teams that are really going to hold serve the longest are going to be USC and Oregon. I think that they're the most set up for success,
absolutely they
and
are.
I hope that USC can get out of whatever rut they're in because they're going to run Lincoln out of town at this rate.
I Yeah, I mean, Lincoln has already said he would love to go to the NFL and coach Caleb, like they could come as a package deal. He said that.
That's a terrible decision.
Yeah, I think that's a terrible decision as well. I think what Lincoln needs out in USC down is he needs to get a defensive coordinator who can run a defense. Because if he keeps this up, like if they keep this up with their defense, I could see them being again a middle pack Big Ten team. Yeah, they could score points, but what are you gonna do when you have to face a top 10 defense? You know, who
And what are you
can?
doing at Iowa
Yeah,
second week in November?
right.
You're
Or
going to
what?
be cold. You're not going to be able to move the ball.
You're gonna have to find a
Yeah.
way to win ugly games, and that's my fear with USC coming over. I think Oregon is honestly out of all the four teams that are coming over, I think Oregon is built for success in the Big Ten. They started recruiting defense. They kept their high octane offense philosophy, and it's just meshed really well this year. And they only have one blemish on their season so far. And if I'm not mistaken, this week is Oregon Washington, is it not?
They already had that. That was the
No,
Well,
no,
blemish.
no,
USC.
no, no. Oregon
Oregon
USC is this
SC.
weekend. Yeah,
So you're telling me USC is going to go out there and lose, what, five in a row? Four or five in a row?
possibly.
Yeah.
I think that Dan Lanning has that team completely down to earth. I think USC completely outgrew whatever ego they may have already had. I think that there needs to be a whole reset in USC, and I think you're right. I think he needs to go out and find, and they need to pay for whatever top tier DC they can find to just load up on defense.
Mhm.
And completely revamp their defense too, in my opinion.
I would spend the winter with Kirk Ferentz and say, "What do you do?
Yeah,
Tell me how you do it. I'm coming to your conference. Help a brother out.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Don't
think
give him
Drew?
sorry. I think next year is a huge year for Lincoln Riley. Like we all agree Lincoln Riley can put on a great offense, right? But there's one thing Lincoln Riley has never done, and that's play defense. And he's been a head coach for 7 or 8 years now. He hasn't figured this out. And now he's coming into a conference that is defense first minded. So he's either going to figure it out or Lincoln Riley's going to get fired next year.
Ooh, okay. I
I agree. I
I don't
agree.
I don't disagree with that statement either. He
So
didn't
who's
play
on the hotter seat?
defense. Ooh, that is okay. Ethan, ask your question. Who's on the hotter
Sorry,
seat?
who's on the hotter seat? And this is going to be full ridiculous left field. We're looking at who's on the hotter seat and like oh, is it Bielema in Illinois?
Mm-hmm.
Bielema, Tom Allen, or Lincoln Riley?
Um, I would say Bielema is probably not on a hot seat. Just because of the expectations you have at Illinois. You
I think
know.
he might be in December because this was a quite disappointing season.
Yeah, but
But he is coming off last year's success.
true. And I
So
don't
he's got a longer leash.
exactly. And I think his seat is more lukewarm, like getting
Mhm.
hotter as, maybe in the next couple seasons. But I just don't think I think the expectations at Illinois are let's get bowl eligible and if we can make it to Indianapolis, awesome. You
Mhm.
know?
Basketball school.
Yeah. Um,
Mhm.
but as far as Lincoln Riley, I think he is probably one of the hottest seats right now in the entire country, let alone just out of the Big Ten. I mean, when you really think about their the hype that was going into USC this year was playoff national championship or bust, and it's clearly a bust.
150%. Are they? Yeah, they're 7-3 now.
Yep.
Yeah, and along with that, and I'll be the first one to say this, Caleb Williams has played himself out of the Heisman, of a second Heisman. He's literally
He's
played
played
himself
himself
out of it.
out of a first round pick, possibly.
Yeah,
That
I
too.
question if he's even the best quarterback in college football.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff coming out saying that after this last month or so, the stuff he said, the way he's played,
Yeah.
he's probably not even the number one quarterback, if even a first round pick now.
Honestly, okay,
And
I'll tell you
yeah,
this right now, sitting right here live. If I was, if my franchise needs a quarterback, Like it's desperate need of a quarterback. There's one quarterback I would take in this draft, and that's Bo Nix. I think he is the most pro-ready quarterback in this draft class.
And I'm
Well,
probably, yeah,
he's been a college starter for 5 years. I hope he's ready. Shit.
Yeah,
and I'm
but I'm
probably trading down a little bit for him. If I'm in the
yeah,
top
Oh
five,
yeah.
I'm
yeah,
bouncing back to 10, 15. I'm going to get another pick. I'm try to figure something out in there.
yeah. Try to
Yeah.
maybe get another
A second rounder.
well, maybe depending on how high you are. I mean, if you're in the top three, you could eventually move back to like 7 and like 11. You know what I mean? Like get those two first round picks,
Yeah.
draft like an offensive lineman that you need high, and then take Bo Nix or something of that nature.
Maybe you could maybe even drop farther back. I haven't looked
Yeah.
at the rankings lately, but I would assume it's like Caleb, Drake May, Michael Penix. I would think is probably number three.
And Penix, oh my God, can we just talk about him for a second? This guy never had a future in the NFL at Indiana when he was there. Wasn't even going
Mm-hmm.
to have a future in football. And then this year, he's played himself literally into a first round draft pick, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I,
this year and last year.
yeah, I
The
mean,
move to Washington was a life changer for him.
yes, absolutely it was.
Absolutely. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know when this is accurate. Of
I mean, he's
Pro
thrown.
Football Focus has it Caleb Williams, Drake May, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, JJ Shadur, Jaden Daniels, and Quinn Ewers.
I was really high on Quinn Ewers, but he's had kind of a disappointing season.
He's
Now
been
he's hurt.
injured. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
now
now
he's
he's hurt.
hurt. Um,
But he can come back next year.
but like Penix Jr., let's just look at this. He's completed almost 70% of his passes. He's thrown for 3,200 yards and has 26 touchdowns with 7 interceptions. I mean,
He's good.
and only 6 sacks for the sack yardage loss is 35 yards. So that's less than, I mean, he's averaging roughly what, like 6 or 7 yards a sack if he's being
Yeah.
sacked. I mean, that's,
So he's being sacked on his drop point, basically.
yeah, he's being,
He's,
exactly.
he's not running around and dying out in the abyss.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to say that Penix and Bo Nix have probably the two best supporting casts in college football for offense.
Yeah, absolutely they do.
Yeah. And to be fair, the Pac-12 defenses aren't stellar.
Stellar. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, then you look at,
Utah, Oregon State, UCLA.
and then
Like
you look
those are
at,
the three best defenses.
oh yeah, then you look at
UCLA's dud
Bo
defense this
Nix.
year.
Bo Nix has thrown for 2,700 yards, completed almost 70, because completed 78% of his passes, 25 tutties with 2 interceptions and 4 sacks for negative 23 yards.
Yeah,
I
but Nix was like 20 of 29 for 386 and six total touchdowns yesterday.
yeah, the dude is, I mean, he's lighting it up, and it's a shame that that these three guys, that these three top, Pac-12 quarterbacks are all going to be gone next year, and we won't see them in the Big
Yeah.
Ten. That's a shame, because I would love to see them, Bo Nix mid-season go up against Ohio State or Michigan. You know,
Might get a good Rose Bowl matchup this year out of them, depending on who plays.
no,
I,
we
I don't
won't.
remember what the finals are.
We
I
won't get
really
the
don't
Rose
right
Bowl
now.
matchup. The college football playoff is the Rose Bowl, and I forget. It's not the
With
Sugar.
the Cotton Bowl,
Maybe. Let me just look that up here. CFP.
I always try to think before I start Googling stuff. Some days it's just more fun to just figure it out before you bring up the Googs.
Oh yeah. Um, the Wikipedia didn't have that.
Championship games at Energy Stadium. So
Yep.
that's the
The
Cotton Bowl question mark? No, that's just a championship game.
oops. I need to go to 2023, not 2024. Let's take a look here. So the championship game this year is at
Yeah, Houston. So it's just a
NRGC,
one off.
Houston. Yeah, Houston. Um, all right, let's take a look here. Okay, there it is. The 2023-2024 schedule. So your playoff games are going to be the Rose Bowl and Sugar Bowl. So I was right. The Rose Bowl and Sugar Bowl are going to be your two playoff games this year, which makes
That's
sense
exciting.
because that was the first one with Oregon and FSU out in the Rose Bowl, Ohio State, Alabama playing in the Sugar Bowl. So that makes sense to keep those two paired. So we won't get a
Oops.
like typical Rose Bowl game this year. And those semifinal games will both be played on January 1, as the Rose Bowl does not want to give up
Me.
their 5 o'clock Rose Bowl game.
All I'm
January
saying
1st
is
game.
you could still get a Rose Bowl game. You could get a Washington and Michigan Ohio State winner. You
You
can get a
definitely could.
2-4 in there.
You
You can
could
get a
get the
1-3 there.
1-4, the 1-4, or the 2-3.
Mm,
Absolutely. Yeah. Um, Speaking of Michigan, I think it's time that we discuss now the shadow that's been hanging over them for the past couple weeks. Additionally, going back to January when they announced the investigation into the recruiting violations from the 2020 COVID year. And then later on, weeks after that was announced, they fired their offensive coordinator, Weiss, for computer hacking and such. And then 3 weeks ago, it was announced that they were now being investigated over signal stealing. Um, I want to throw it to you guys first, just to get your guys' opinion on the most recent one, the signal scaling. Your guys' opinion, signal stealing. Sorry. Um, just get your guys' initial thoughts. What were you guys thinking when it first broke? Do you guys think it's a big deal, type deal? And then we'll just have a general discussion after that about it. So,
I think that when it first broke, to me personally, it was a everybody did it. You got caught. That's kind of where my first initial thoughts were. And I think still to a degree, everybody does it to a sense, and everybody's got access to game footage to a degree. I think that this is far overstepping any bounds of advantageous scouting or extra scouting that they called it. If that dude was truly on the sidelines at CMU with some Google glasses videoing, that's a whole different level of not
that
okay in my book.
that's not, yeah, I was gonna say that's not like scouting at that point. That's
Yeah,
Bill Belichick and Tom Brady's scandal of sending a guy to film practices.
yeah, that's just not okay. I think that the NCAA has been out for Harbaugh for a while. I think that they're just trying to find anything they can find because he, I don't know, the easiest way for me to put it is he doesn't make himself a likable person. Like he doesn't make it like he wants to pal around with these guys. He's not out there to appease the NCAA. He's going to do what he's going to do. He's going to find a way to bend the rules enough to get by with it, whether he does or doesn't know what's going on. And he's going to go on with his life. And he's just going to throw the middle finger up to the NCAA because, in the end, he really doesn't care what they think. He's made that known before. I
Absolutely.
think that he's been on the outs for the NFL again for a couple of years.
Well,
But
clearly, I mean, he went to have a
yeah,
meeting to take a head coaching job on signing day. Like,
if this all comes down to the truth, and now I know everybody also knows that Michigan's kicking back, saying these investigatory firms lead back to Ryan Day's family.
okay,
So
so
they're trying to
you know who
spin
said
that
that? Well, you know who
back
said
around.
that. Real quick, I'm gonna just want to interrupt you there. You know who said that? The only person I've heard say that so far, that's like outside of like, you see these like seek sec.com or whatever,
Oh yeah,
right? I watch Minutes of Sports. If you guys are listening, it's a great podcast hosted by former Ohio State wide receiver coach Zach Smith and his co-host Chris Drew. They are phenomenal. It's great insight into college football from a guy who coached not only Ohio State but coached in the Big Ten, but he also coached Florida and the SEC. So he's very well diverse. He threw it out there as like clickbait type deal that Ryan Day's brother or somebody was a former FBI or DEA agent. And that's where all this is. He called his brother, was like, "Yo, hey, do something about this" type deal. So that's like literally the only piece outside of like those like I call them non-credible sports media
Right.
outlets have talked about it.
That's fantastic. I
Yeah,
haven't seen. I didn't. I mean, I'm not going to do any FBI digging myself.
no,
I've just seen it in multiple flick sources.
yeah, and so that's all I wanted to
Um,
say is that's I
I,
think that's where a lot of that has came from was Zach on his show just like I'm gonna
that was
throw this out
amusing.
there, and he was clearly like satire,
Uh,
sarcasm
um,
through it. So, but go ahead,
and
Ethan,
one,
with your
oh, you're good. I'll say, and if we're talking podcasts, I listened to the Late Kick. Josh Pate, he had a great coverage. His thoughts on the Michigan thing. He did his podcast this past Thursday. It's the most recent one I listened to on Spotify.
mhm,
I thought he had really good views on the whole Michigan scandal and everything. But yeah, I just think that it's Harbaugh's on the outs at the NCAA. They don't like him. He doesn't care what they think. And this is far and beyond not okay as a form of advanced scouting. So,
absolutely,
whatever happens, I know the Big Ten, they're not worried about it because Michigan is money right now, and you're not going to take your biggest product off the shelf, regardless
absolutely.
of what it does to you or your views. Um, this would be like mid teens. Well, let's go further back here. Let's go late 2000s era Duke Blue Devils. You've got a JJ Redick story. You got a Coach K story. If something like that were to break mid season, granted, it's a whole different time. You're not taking Duke basketball off TV.
No,
Duke is your money. I want Duke basketball in the playoff. I want Tiger Woods in a red shirt on Sunday. I want Michigan in a bowl game.
yep.
That is one thing I heard forever ago from Colin Coward, and I truly
We
believe
like
and stand by that.
consistency. We like
Yeah,
consistency as sports fans. You
yeah.
like
You like your results.
Yeah, and you like the predictability, like you said. Tiger Woods wearing red on Sunday, winning a major. We like those things. Drew, your thoughts initially when all this came out? What was your going through your mind with it?
Uh, so a lot of what Ethan just said. I think this is mostly the NCAA realizing that their power is disappearing and trying to take out a guy who has gotten past them so many times. I think this is the NCAA trying to get Jim Harbaugh in trouble. Uh, that being said, I do think that they took it too far. You can't go like that dude was standing on CMU's sidelines with other coaches rocking
Allegedly,
CMU gear,
allegedly.
Yeah,
allegedly. Also, like you really need to steal signs for Michigan State. Come
Right.
on, bro.
they said
Um,
it bought tickets to what 5 Purdue games. What's that gaining you?
like what? These teams are so far behind Michigan. You don't need to steal their signs.
Agreed.
Uh, but like I think everyone does this, not to this degree, but I believe everyone, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. That's just sports. Um,
I I, I
I
wouldn't
think this
say
is that
cheating. I would say if you're not pushing the limits of the rules, you're
like
not
if you're
you're
not
not yeah,
strategizing,
strategizing. If you're not pushing the limits of the rules, are you really doing your program its due justice, in my
yeah.
opinion?
And Harbaugh comes from the NFL. The NFL is very like that. In the NFL, they'll do anything to get a leg up on the other team, right? So
Deflating balls.
Yeah, it's not surprising. I think it's mostly the NCAA is salty at Jim Harbaugh and trying to attack him. Um, I think I think no matter what, Harbaugh's gone at the end of this year, so it doesn't really matter. And then I think that if Harbaugh goes to the NFL, uh, why would the NFL suspend Harbaugh for violations from the
Oh,
NCAA?
they
That
won't.
that makes no sense. The NFL
Yeah.
doesn't give a fuck about the NCAA.
No,
I don't think anyone gives a fuck about the NCAA.
no.
No.
But
Um,
yeah, I don't. They
as
took it too far, but it's not a huge deal. It's not sexual assault in the
I think
Northwestern locker room.
so. I've tried to remain as unbiased as I possibly can. Throughout this, being a big Ohio State fan that I am, I'm just, I'll admit that right now. I've tried to remain unbiased as much as I can, and really looked at this from a outside in point of view. You know, if I wasn't a fan of Ohio State or Michigan or any Big Ten team, what would my thoughts be on this type of scandal? Like if it happened to, like, let's say a USC or an Oregon, right, or Alabama, Georgia. Um, my initial thoughts when this all broke was this doesn't look good. You know, I don't. I think it's not do justice to compare the severity of it. I don't think you're doing it justice comparing it to what Penn State had with Jerry Sandusky, what Northwestern just went through, because those are way different severity things. Um, and I think where this comes really into play is the integrity of the game. And I think that's where the severity comes into it is you're taking the integrity of the game and diminishing it a little bit. Now, how much are you diminishing it? That's not for me to decide. But I do think it's diminishing the integrity of what football is, right? Um, through coaches' film, the all 22 film, through TV copies, you can see some stuff. On all 22 film, which is you get, sideline view and the end zone view of offense and defense. You don't see coaches. You don't see signal callers on that type of film. You just don't get that from their film. You get some of it, yes, from TV copies, and the NCAA has obviously said, hey, if you watch film, you can get what you want from film, right? That's obviously okay. If you reach out to other coaches, hey, how did you guys scheme for Michigan? How did you guys scheme for Ohio State? How did you scheme for Penn State? Do you have anything on film that we may not have that could help us out? That's okay because you're reaching out to other coaches and that aspect, and if you have a friend on another team, who's like an Al Washington who left Ohio State, joined Notre Dame, and you're like, Notre Dame played Michigan, you got to play them, and you go, hey, what did you guys do to make their lives a little difficult? I think that's all fair game, right?
Hmm.
Coaches sharing information, all that. I think when you take it to the level that this Connor Stallions guy did, where you're purchasing tickets to every Big Ten school outside of Michigan, obviously, the 13 of the 14 schools. You're purchasing games to Oregon, USC, potential playoff opponents the past 2 years, um, and all that stuff. I think that's where everything just looks really bad for Michigan, and
My
their
thing
program.
is, why? And I get you're trying to get a leg up, but I know he's done this 4 years. But wouldn't you be able to do that at home? Don't you see nine of these teams a year?
Yep.
Well, not nine of them, but I mean, I guess you're going home in a row, but I guess so the home's an improper term. But you see nine of these teams a year, eight of these teams a year. I'm sure you could pick up something to use in the future or this or the other. I'm not going to coach at Purdue and do anything different against Michigan that I tried to do against Wisconsin.
Right.
I'm still trying to run my game plan.
Absolutely.
I don't. It's just a different caliber of athlete we're going up against.
Absolutely. Um, and then two, I've I always try to think of like if this was like, I would still say this no matter what, even if it was Ohio State. And I said this back when Jim Tressel got caught, in the Tattoo Five that we call them here in Ohio, in Columbus, led by Terrell Pryor and Boom Herron. You say they got Jim Tressel was forced out of Columbus. They got a bowl ban and lost the scholarships for a lot less. Literally something, and this is something that like I always hear in the media is, or from Michigan fan bases and so on, that everybody is doing this. Well, literally what Terrell Pryor and all those guys were doing, making money off their name, image, and likeness, was something that was going on in college football for decades. Literally every program was doing it to an extent, right? Um,
Reggie Bush.
yeah, we could go down the line. Reggie Bush. I mean, former Alabama players were saying boosters were handing them bags, just like a gift bag full of money to come there.
The Miami Hurricanes in the
I was
80s.
gonna
Yeah,
say,
the U in the
in the
80s.
2000s, the boats and hoes.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
those guys. I mean, you literally could say,
Decades.
okay, everybody was doing that, and then the NCAA finally realized, okay, everybody throughout college football is doing this. We need to find a way to make this a legal thing within the NCAA, right? Within the rule book. And they were forced out and served suspensions and all that. And part of Jim Tressel's, if people forget about this, part of his thing was if he coached in college, like if after he left Ohio State, if within a 5-year period, if another program hired him in any capacity, they would get the same sanctions Ohio State did, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think when you're looking at previous stuff outside, and I don't think you can compare this, look at, oh, what were Penn State sanctions for what their thing is, because to me that is two severities that are equal in different aspects, right?
Right.
One was sexual assault, one is the integrity of the game. Not diminishing either. I'm not saying one is, more important or whatever. I'm just saying that you can't compare those two, like these two investigations at all.
Yeah, it's not the
Mm-hmm.
same crime.
Yeah, it's
If
not the
I
same
go
crime.
into if I go to Walmart and steal a Hershey's bar from the checkout, or I go to
Best
I
Buy
don't
and
know,
steal a
just
TV, that's two different
yeah,
things.
it's a whole different
Yeah,
ordeal. Or,
right. So
or
the more, and I try to, just, let facts come out and stuff during this time, but the more and more stuff that comes out, it looks really, really bad for Michigan at this point. You guys have mentioned Connor being on SMU sideline. Another thing, so an update that came out this week. Now, ESPN reports that Connor Salians was fired by Michigan. Michigan reports that he voluntarily resigned.
his
Um,
lawyer claimed he resigned.
and that, yeah, his attorney said he resigned, and that no coach, um, in Michigan, this was, all Connor's doing. He went rogue essentially, and all this stuff. Now, I find that very hard to believe, just because this season it was reported right before Ohio State played Penn State that he purchased tickets that were totaled $8,000. Four tickets that totaled $8,000, and this dude makes $55,000 a year. Okay, so he purchased two tickets in the club section right behind Ohio State's bench on the between the 45s. Okay, I looked those tickets up. Just, hey, what are tickets going for the Penn State game this year? Those tickets were $3,000 a piece. The tickets he
Jesus.
purchased behind, yeah, the tickets he
I
purchased
was gonna
behind.
say, how do you spend $8,000 on tickets?
Oh, watch this. So yeah, 3,000 a piece for those two. He purchased two behind Penn State's bench, facing Ohio State sideline. Those tickets were $1,000 a piece going.
So we had
So
4 seats in this one game.
4 seats in one game. Now,
Money bags.
Yeah, but
so,
at the same time, he could easily drop that on a credit card, pull that out of savings, go back to Michigan with a
Receipt.
ticket and say, "Here, give me my money back." And that's not affecting his salary.
you're not
That
wrong.
doesn't count towards his salary. That's just Michigan stroking a check and reimbursing him. So yeah,
Now,
55 grand a year. You could probably do that with a credit card.
or and then also because then now it came out that he was sending people there, transferring those tickets, reimbursing them all for their travel expenses. It's just hard to believe that he financed that all by himself. Because
Mhm.
if you're talking 8 grand just for Ohio State, Penn State, what the hell did you spend when you bought those tickets to the USC, or you know what I'm saying? Like when you went out and you've had these people fly out west or whatever,
A lot,
a
a
lot of
lot.
money. So, um, I just think the more and more it comes out, it doesn't look good on Michigan's end. Um, and it's very hard to say what the Big Ten should do, what the NCAA should do at this point, because you're in the middle of an investigation. Do you discipline them or do you not? And if you discipline them and the investigation comes back, okay, this wasn't rule breaking or anything, whatever, then both the Big Ten and the NCAA look like jackasses, which the NCAA is just going to look more like a jackass than they already are. Um,
Which isn't a bad thing either. Like,
no,
to be fair, if you're looking for some light out of this, it's that NCAA is losing their hold on the fear that they've
feels
stricken in people the last 25 years.
exactly. And I think now the one thing I do disagree with is I don't think this is just a big giant witch hunt for Harbaugh. Now give it the NCAA does not like him.
I
Obviously
don't like him.
he's made that clear.
A
They've
lot of
made
people
that
don't like
clear.
him.
Yeah,
See, I'm on that
but
list. I
Like
don't like the dude.
like you said, he does not make himself
like
likable.
no, he does not at
No,
all. And here's why I say I don't think this is the NCAA on a witch hunt, quote unquote, to get Harbaugh out of college football. Is at the end of the day, as it was Jimmy Johnson's responsibility at the U, as it was or Butch Davis's responsibility and Coker's responsibility at the U, as it
Larry Coker.
was Jim Tressel's responsibility, as it was Urban Meyer's responsibility, as it was Joe Paterno's responsibility, and and Patty Fitz's responsibility. It is Jim Harbaugh's responsibility to know what goes on within his program. And it's very
Mm.
hard, and just looking at it outside in, it is very hard for me to believe that the defensive coordinator, the offensive coordinator, and Harbaugh did not know to an extent what Stallions was doing. Especially when you have video, multiple, and this is not just from the Ohio State game, they have multiple games of Stallions right next to the coordinators who are standing right in between Harbaugh with his signal stealing sheet going into their ears. This is what they're doing. This is their, formation or whatever. This is typically what they've ran, right? It is very hard for me to believe that one of those coaches after a game didn't go, how did you get all that information? Where did you get
Mhm.
this? How did you come up with this?
And even if they did say those exact same
Stick.
words, most likely, it was probably followed with, I don't want to know.
Yep.
Mhm.
Actually, never mind. I don't want to know.
Don't.
Don't tell
Hey,
me.
where did you get this from? Never mind.
Never mind. Keep doing it. Just leave us
Thank
out
you.
of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
leave us
Whatever
out
you're
of it.
doing, keep it up. Don't tell me.
Exactly. And I think that comes down to ignorance. You ignorantly did not want to know you willingly did not want to know what was going on within your own program because of the success that you've had in these past two
Now,
years.
that
Now,
being said, I have also heard that the Big Ten coaches all got
they
together
did
and went to the commish and said,
do something.
bruh, yeah, we need to make this. But again,
And Harbaugh, okay, so
the commish is a TV guy.
off of that report, Harbaugh, they were all the commissioner apparently after they handled their weekly business, with all the coaches, he said, we want to, I know a lot of you guys have some things going on, with the current investigation. I would like to give you guys time to speak, your minds, and speak about that. Harbaugh apparently said, I don't know what he said, but he recused himself from that conversation. So then that way the other Big Ten coaches could speak freely There, I don't blame him for doing that. I think that was actually a good decision by Harbaugh to say, hey, let me drop out of this so you guys can all talk because this does involve me and my university, right? I would expect any coach in that situation to kind of do the same to let the other coaches speak freely. Now, some would say all these other coaches should have the balls to do it and say it in front of Harbaugh. I also don't disagree with that statement either. But at the end of the day, Jim himself chose to recuse himself from that conversation. And then followed by that meeting, the ADs then all met with the commissioner of the Big Ten, and this past weekend, either was Friday or Saturday night, um, Michigan's athletic director did meet with Patetti, the commissioner of the Big Ten, to discuss what is going on, essentially, right? Um,
Yeah. But again, Tony Petitti is a TV guy. He was
yeah,
the COO of the MLB. He was the
yep,
former president of Activision Blizzard. He was president of CBS Sports
absolutely.
before he went to the MLB. The guy knows TV. The guy knows what brings in money. We can all sit here and kick Jim Harbaugh out of the meeting after an hour and a half
Exactly.
of what I heard was a very emotional
Yep.
and very intense meeting. And we can talk shit. But at the end of the day, I'm not, if I'm Tony Petiti, and in 2 of the next 3 weeks, I've got two of my marquee matchups. I don't care. I don't care what happens. Now come talk to me on January 10th. Eh, well, maybe we should have done something,
Yep.
but they're not going to do anything. NCAA doesn't want to be involved. NCAA basically just said no.
The
Go,
NCAA
go
is
talk to
we're taking our
go talk
time.
to your boss.
Yeah, we're taking our time. Um,
NCAA used the chain of command thing.
yep.
Hey, you need to go talk to your boss before you come talk to us.
And I don't think Harbaugh has helped himself in any of these situations, or especially this situation with lying to the investigators originally about buying a kid a cheeseburger. I mean, that was a $25 burger. It wasn't like a Big Mac, but let's just be honest, like he
It'd
hasn't
be
helped
good.
himself in these types of situations. He's
No,
continuously just given them the middle finger, said F fuck off. This is what it is,
no.
right?
I don't care what you think. I don't
Yep.
care what you want.
And that now, I mean, let's just be honest. Did that piss the NCAA off? Absolutely, it does. But as Zach Smith has repeatedly said on his show, the NCAA is like the FBI, the DEA, the CIA. If they come knocking on your door asking for questions, they already have the answers to them. They're giving you the opportunity to be upfront with them. And if you're not, that's when they bring the hammers down, right? Um, so in that aspect, I can see where everybody's coming from with the narrative. This is just to get Harbaugh out. The NCAA doesn't like him, all this stuff. But at the same token, the NCAA has to they get a credible you know evidence, whatever have you. They're following up on it. They're doing their due diligence as the governing body of college football. And I think that's where people just need to the majority of all fan bases at this point, the Michigan and Ohio State fan base, you need to just say we need to wait till all this stuff, all we get all the facts before punishments or anything of that nature is decided. Um, what the punishment should be for this, I think, is unprecedented because you haven't really had something like this come out for a university, to like this type of an extent. So what the punishment should be, I'm not exactly sure, but I imagine a postseason ban, loss of scholarships, and a suspension for Harbaugh. If not, Harbaugh has to resign, or Michigan has to let him go. Um, the other thing, the one question that I am also inquiring about, and I would love some more information on, is the money side of this. Follow the money, as everybody says in investigations. Follow the money. I think if it does come out, and this is again all just speculation, but if it does come out that Harbaugh or somebody within the program was funneling him the cash to do this, this is going to get a lot worse than any of us possibly could have imagined. You know, now as an Ohio State fan, do I want to see this happen to my rival? Absolutely not. Why? And I don't think anybody wants this to happen to their rival. Why? Because when you beat them, you don't want any excuses, right? And and I think that's just and I don't want any excuses if we go up to Ann Arbor and we beat them. You know what I mean? Like I don't want the excuse, oh, Harbaugh was suspended. Oh, we didn't have our defense or offensive court. You know what I mean? No excuses. We want to beat the best of the best, right? Um so that's where I'm at with all this. I think it doesn't look good on the surface for Michigan. I think this could be not a program killer, but it could definitely set them back. Um, the next question that I have for you guys regarding this is how much do you think this actually impacted Michigan's success over the past 2 years? Just to give you a little statistics behind it, Jim Harbaugh's win percentage up until 2021 was 63%. Okay, after 2021, it was 98%. And I say 2021 is because that's when they're saying this all goes back to. Okay, with the Connor Stallions. Their Zach Smith did a wonderful breakdown about this. He said he goes into their blue chip ratio and their blue, which is your talent level, your, all that kind of stuff compiled into one. Michigan's been their average blue chip ratio 2021, 2022, and this year. And this year is actually their lowest blue chip ratio going back to 2014 as well. They're like kind of tied in that aspect. So, did Michigan really level up as, we all hope they did and, brought national powerhouse back to the Big Ten, or was it really because of what Connor Stallions was doing? I'm not going to say my opinion on it. I want your two opinion on it.
Mm.
How much did this really impact them leveling up?
Um, well, I look back. I'm looking back at the old schedules right now, and there's really only a handful of games that they won by a score or less. I would think that if this Connor Stallions thing did affect them, then it would have been these games that they win by a score or two. But honestly, there hasn't been that many. I do think that they really did level up. Like Harbaugh is a good coach, a great recruiter, and a great motivator. So I do think he affected them. But I would say that there's probably 2 to 3, 2 to 4 games over these 2, 3 years that were really affected.
Okay. Ethan, your opinion?
I mean, you look at this roster, I would say significantly, and you're just talking these last 2, 3 years, figure
Yeah.
21, 22, and this year. And I don't have time to count all these kids' numbers. I would say 65% of this team's been together for that time frame. So it is entirely possible that they leveled up. Um, if you look at his records at Michigan, 10-3, 10-3, 8-5, 10-3, 9-4, COVID, and then you hit the 12-2 conference champions, 13-1 conference champions, and now you're sitting at 6-0. It's entirely possible that they leveled up. I can't discount that.
Yep.
I mean, he's had the backing there. He's had the records to go with it. And he still would be 10-3 or 12-2. If he loses to Ohio State last year, he's back in that 10-3 category because you're not getting the conference championship game,
Yep.
you're going straight to your bowl game.
Yeah.
So, and Jim Harbaugh, not a bowl game coach.
Clearly,
He's got
1-6.
one bowl game win, which is the Citrus Bowl in 2015, and that was a 41-7 shellacking of the Florida Gators, who I'm pretty sure most of them had already left for the NFL.
Yeah. And
Um, yeah,
yeah, bowl season definitely isn't what it used to be. What you and I, what the three of us and Corey grew up on, where everybody played regardless if you were going to the NFL. Now, because of Jadeveon Clowney and all these guys sitting out, they're like, hey, I don't want to play in this
the
meaningless bowl game.
Bosa's,
Yeah, the
that whole
Bosa's.
Florida team with not with well, Kyle Trask was the starting
Yep,
quarterback. You had Kyle Pitts, Kadarius Toney, that whole defense of Florida that was 10-2 or whatever they were that year just didn't play.
absolutely.
Um, and I definitely think that I would basically it's a coin flip to me on whether or not this made a huge difference.
I would
I
agree.
think that the conference has been down enough that
Yep,
this could easily just be, and if you look at their schedule over that time frame, back to the high school schedules, they didn't haven't played anybody too productive. They came out, I mean, in a very I don't want to say this is exaggerated a little bit. Ohio State had them dead in the water at halftime last year,
and
and then
then
two big chunk plays in the second half handed them the game. And now, is that a result of those signs?
that's
I don't know.
and that's
Maybe it is.
and I think that's
And
the
then,
major question that a lot of people have
but when
is,
they've gone to
but when they went,
Indianapolis, they didn't have to play anybody.
no.
Purdue hung with them in the first half, got tired out, got smoked.
Yep,
Iowa, super boring game. I don't even know if we stayed for the whole thing that year. I think we were back in the hotel watching the more significant games by the third
absolutely.
quarter.
Yeah,
Um, it's just the caliber of competition hasn't been consistently high enough for me to say that this has affected Michigan's record as much as the media wants you to believe, because in 2020 they pussied out of half their games.
yep, absolutely.
So, like, I would say it's a coin flip for me. If you want to say, cool, yeah, it affected it. If you didn't, I'm probably going to believe whatever. So I'm going to support you on whatever side of the fence you're on personally.
I would say it's a coin flip as well. I just think when you look at it, the only team out of the college football playoff that they didn't have our Stallions didn't purchase a ticket to was TCU, and we
Because they thought they were going to play
played
Tennessee,
Tennessee and or somebody else, and then
right?
and then
SEC.
that game turned out the way it did. It's To me, it's like, okay, was that because of the sign stealing? Like the coin flip, was it because of that, or is it just because Hardball doesn't have good bowl prep? You know, so I think you're teetering a very fine fence there. You know,
Yeah,
and I can't say either way if it affected them or not. I've seen some coaches and say that it's most likely a 10 to 14 point with signal stealing advantage. You'd say you get a touchdown you save a touchdown on defense and maybe get a field goal or a touchdown on offense. So I think that's pretty fair, a 10 to 14 point swing with signal stealing. Now, and I'm gonna say that that would be for whoever was doing it, regardless if it was Michigan,
right.
Ohio State, anybody. I think that's a safe 10 to 14 point swing in your favor for most of those games. Um, I wish Corey was here as our Michigan guy to
Right.
give his thoughts.
Mhm.
I've talked to him extensively about this. He is his, and I'll tell you guys, his opinion has always been, I want to wait for the facts to all come out before I make a decision or make a judgment on this. And I think that's definitely fair. But I think the majority of us, can all agree that on the surface, without knowing, the full facts and everything, I think on the surface that this is just looks bad. It doesn't look good. It looks bad, right? Um,
And I think it's been a bit
I think
overly pushed. I think there's
definitely
nothing to talk about. There's nothing going on.
no.
That's just my opinion. I mean, it's nothing.
Well,
I just think that they're out of. There's no big topics. They already threw
w-
Pat Fitzgerald to the wolves.
right.
They PJ
Well,
Fleck. That was a 6 hour ordeal.
when I
I
think,
just
and
think
I don't
that
think you're
we're out of
wrong.
stuff to talk about.
Well, and I don't think you're wrong that the media is blowing this up because it's Michigan. But I also think that if this was Ohio State, it'd be getting just as much national attention.
Yeah.
USC, Oregon, Georgia,
I
Alabama,
agree.
your main schools, they'd be getting this attention. But if this was Purdue, Northwestern, Illinois,
Liberty.
Yeah.
Liberty, Vanderbilt,
That was
Mhm.
kind.
Arizona, it wouldn't be getting the national attention that it is getting.
I think the fact that it's Jim Harbaugh really elevates it because
Of who he is.
as we said, yeah, people don't like Jim Harbaugh for being Jim Harbaugh. So I think that
Right.
elevates it.
That takes it to a
And he's
whole
such a
nother level.
yeah, and he's such a big name.
And I
Like
think
it
like
easy
this
to get clicks.
yeah, and like the Urban Meyer, Zach Smith
It'd be
saga
the
that
same way
happened.
if it were Urban.
Yeah, it's same thing if it was Urban. Big name, big guy,
Mm-hmm.
national headline. It elevates that story from a mid-level story to holy crap, this is national,
Yeah,
media.
dude.
So
Um,
speaking of national media, do you full swerve? Do you think Urban's going to East Lansing?
no,
No.
Just real quick.
he has clearly stated whoever is putting these reports out is honestly is they are Brett McMurphy bad at reporting.
Clicks. Looking for a
They
click.
are Brett
Here
McMurphy
for a
bad.
dollar.
Yeah,
Desperate for them clicks.
exactly.
They're
Because
yeah.
Urban has stated multiple times that he has no interest in coaching Michigan State. He has no interest at this point to even return back to coaching. Um,
And I understand like Urban was a good football coach for sure. He's a very, very good college football coach. But Michigan State is in such a bad spot right now culturally that bringing him in would be like the complete opposite of what you want to do.
It's just gasoline on a fire.
Exactly.
because he's going to bring controversy with him,
He's Urban Meyer. Yeah.
bringing you back to your national powerless,
He'll put you in the
prowess.
spotlight, but
Yeah,
it might not be a good spotlight.
You're not always going to like it, and you may be 9-3, but is it worth whatever it brings with it?
Yeah.
exactly.
Too much baggage.
Too much baggage with Urban, and I think he knows that too. I think internally he
He
knows
has to.
that
At,
I
this
just
point,
can't. Yeah, and
And he's got that comfy job for Fox.
where he
I would
makes
rather have that.
Yeah.
like what they signed him
I
to
don't
like a
know.
new contract. I mean, he's making millions of dollars a year being on Fox,
And
big new
Yeah.
kickoff.
I'm sure his bank account is fine.
Oh,
yeah, I don't
absolutely.
think he's ever going to have a problem
No,
making money.
no. And two, Urban speaking just Urban going back to coaching, I really think his stint with the Jaguars really ended his coaching career. Everything that came out with that, I think, really did it. And then two, and we're seeing this kind of out of Saban because there's rumors that he's going to be retiring at the end of this year from Alabama and all this. I think too, one reason Urban doesn't want to come back, I don't think he wants to deal with the NIL aspect of all this. You know, um,
Yeah.
where
I think we're gonna start seeing a lot of veteran coaches
leave.
retire.
Yep.
Yeah, retire early.
I
Like
think what you're seeing, and I use all these comparisons a lot, just it's easier for certain people to understand. You're seeing the NCAA take its Golden State Warriors turn.
Yep.
They reinvented the wheel. They invented a new kind of offense. That offense was prolific. These teams are reinventing the wheel. They're recruiting differently. They're getting players differently. They're transfer portal, NIL. You're seeing a new reform in the way that your team is being developed and
Absolutely.
your players are being acquired. And
mhm.
I think that if you can't keep up with that, you might as well just pack it in and go home.
And you know who's learning that the hard way? And he went on
Dabo.
a Yep, and he went
Dissing
on a
Dabo.
rant on a fan that
Mm-hmm.
is just making people laugh. But
He's
Yeah,
still
dude.
on that,
yeah, he's still on it, and it's just,
but
dude, you gotta realize where college football is right now. It's NIL transfer portal.
Transfer portal. Yeah.
Um,
and the game. I mean, and then you look at was it coach of the Tar Heels? Not
Mac
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 Brown,
Brown.
Brown. No, not the basketball. Roy.
Roy Williams.
Yeah, Roy Williams. He passed him by. Coach K
Yep.
realized it, called up to him, passed him by. Saban's getting there. Mac Brown probably knows this, but is writing it out with Drake May. Dabo doesn't understand it yet.
Nope. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I do want to transition here to the next topic that we had on our show notes today. For our show was the NCAA.
Can him. Get
Is
rid of him.
Okay. Is it time that we find a new governing body for college football, or does the NCAA need to revamp how they do things?
I think
Because let's just be honest.
whatever
Let's just be honest.
houses all of this has to be able to keep up with media and the NIL and the transfer portal. Nobody wants that responsibility. But yet,
No,
if you don't govern it, it's going to get way out of hand.
Yeah.
absolutely.
And CBS doesn't want to be in charge of that. Disney doesn't want to be in charge of that. ESPN
Nope.
doesn't want to be in charge of that. But you're almost going to
God,
need
if ESPN was in
someone,
charge of it, we'd all be in trouble.
but you're going to need a mecca to govern this. And I
Yeah,
don't even understand. I personally don't even know where the first place to start. But
yeah,
if you
I
were
don't
to
either.
elect a governing body to police and run and make decisions and rule changes, it's going to take a whole different kind of person.
I don't
I couldn't
disagree.
do it. I would love to do it. There's no way I could do it.
I I just think that the NCAA, like with investigations, they take way too long to do any of this. You
It's very
know?
nitpicky.
Yeah, and I think that's where like a lot of people's frustrations are with the NCAA is when they do an investigation, it's 2 to 3 years down the line before you really hear anything. And, and then it's like 3 years later, the people who are actually doing the rule breaking aren't even in college anymore. Like they're in the pros if they're players, or if it's a coach, he may have been fired already. So then you're really punishing a program and kids who had nothing to do with the original, thing. Um, and I think I don't disagree. Then I think it's time that they get a change, but who do we go to? Who steps up to be that governing body is another question. Because I don't think you can leave it to the conferences to discipline their own schools because they're not going to they're not going to discipline their cash cows.
If they do, it'll be more slap on the wrist and less severe,
Yeah.
unless something goes viral, like the Pat Fitzgerald or the Jerry Sandusky thing. You're not going to see a significant punishment outside of slaps on the wrists unless it
Well,
is mega proven and mega bad.
yeah. And with the Northwestern situation, they took care of it right away. Northwestern said we're not dealing with this, Pat, you're done. With the Penn State situation, there was a full-fledged investigation with that, for how we don't even know how long they were investigating it. It broke that Joe Paterno was going to be gone. You know what I mean? Like,
And I think what pisses me off personally is during random points of the year. It could be as Tuesday in August. And like the NCAA is taking away 3 wins from Kansas University basketball because of something they did in 2017.
right.
Why? Well, I don't care. Why?
That was
What
six
was the
years
point?
ago.
What did they do that 3 wins is going to affect Bill Self's legacy?
Right.
Nothing.
Exactly. Drew, your thoughts?
I think eventually, uh, like the playoff committee is going to take over all of football, and the NCAA is just going to be uh, hanging on by a thread, but they're still going to be around because we have all these other sports. Um, we have three divisions of schools. We have 350 plus colleges, probably more than that.
Yeah,
But I think eventually they'll be phased out of football.
I think so too. I think so too. Um,
I mean, even basketball, everybody makes the tournament. It's not like
yeah,
it's anything ridiculous.
absolutely. All right, guys, let's hit um our last notes here. Um, our last segment here is we're going to hand out some mid-season to late season helmet stickers for Big Ten players. I asked you guys to pick one offense, one defensive guy, who you guys think is deserving of it, and then one guy that's just, hey, I can't pick, I have my one offense, one defense, but would like to double up on a defense or an offensive guy or even a special teams guy who's made some headlines and who's just played really good football, right? Just played the game very well to this point in the season. Um, let's start with the defensive side. My first helmet sticker is going to be to a home. I'm going to be a homer here for my defensive guy. I'm going to pick Josh Proctor. He's a comeback player of the year. Um, Last year, the last game we really saw him get significant time in at Ohio State was Notre Dame. Didn't really get much time after that. This year, he seems like to be the heart and soul of that secondary for Ohio State. And for that reason, I have to give him my defensive helmet sticker for up to this point in the season for Josh Proctor. Drew, who's your defensive helmet sticker go to?
Uh, on the defensive side of the ball, I am giving my helmet sticker to Kedron Jenkins,
Okay,
defensive lineman, Purdue University.
like it.
Uh, I mean, we all thought Purdue was going to be trash this year. They're kind of trash, but their defensive line is the bright spot of that team. Jenkins is first in the conference in sacks. I think he's first in tackles for loss as well. He's just a big body man. He gave McCarthy a lot of troubles yesterday.
Absolutely. Ethan, your defensive guy.
I actually went with Aaron Casey, a fifth-year senior linebacker from Indiana University, second in the league in solo tackles with 54. He's number one with 13 solo tackles for loss with 59 yards lost, five solo sacks, which is tied for third, two forced fumbles, and his 9 game stat line is the vast improvement over his 11 game stat line in 22. He played everything but the Purdue game last year, but he's just grown head and shoulders, and he's one of the bright spots of that Indiana defense.
Absolutely. Let's snake it back around here. Ethan, let's get your offensive sticker guy.
This one took me a minute. I definitely did a little bit of research on this one this morning. I actually settled on Kyle Monangai out of Rutgers, junior running back,
I'm glad you
leading
did
the
him because I was flip flopping, but since you did him, I'm gonna pick another guy. But go ahead.
first in the league in rushing yards with 904 by 150 yards. Only Big Ten player to average 100 rushing yards per game at 100.3. Uh, Tied for fifth with 5 yards per carry, 5.4. He's got 7 rushing touchdowns. If you take Corum off the board, that's good for second behind Braylon Allen.
Yep.
Corum's got 16. Whatever. Five 100-yard games, but four of those five were 140 plus yards.
Yeah. And he tore
Last
Ohio
year,
State up yesterday too.
right, compared to last year, he cleared 65 yards one time, and that was when he ran for 162 against Michigan State. He had 2 touchdowns last year, and he scored a hat trick against Virginia Tech alone this year. Dude's having a full revamp of a year.
Love it, love it. Drew, your offensive helmet sticker award.
Uh, I got a couple names here. My non guy was, I was also thinking him. I mean, leading Rutgers pretty much.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna, and I was also thinking Braylon Allen, but he's kind of fallen off the last 2 weeks. So my offensive sticker goes to JJ McCarthy.
Okay.
I think he's the best quarterback in the conference. Entering yesterday, he had against Big Ten competition, he was 75%, just under 1,100 yards and 11 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. He had a 202 efficiency rating. He's third in total offense in the conference. I think McCarthy's been managing this offense incredibly well. I think he had maybe one bad game. I think he's very solid.
Absolutely. I'm gonna pick the rival here for my offensive sticker. Um, not I'm not gonna go with JJ, but his counterpart, his tailback Blake Corum. He has 649 yards, with 16 touchdowns. He's When you look at top, running backs or top talent in the Big Ten, I mean, he's one of the best running backs. He might not have like the yard stats, may not be getting fed the ball like he did like last year. But I mean, this kid, he's just so good. It's somebody you have to account for to be able to break those home run runs. Similar to like a Travion Henderson for Ohio State. Just a guy who could take it to the house anytime he touches the ball. So I think he's very well deserving of that, mid to late season helmet sticker for me. Um, and then the next one I have to go to is for my any player. I would have to give it to Drew Aller. I don't think Penn State would be where they are right now, ranked 11th in the country, possibly moving up after their big win against Maryland. I don't think Penn State would be in the position they would be in without Drew Aller. And let's just be honest, he's had one bad game, and that one bad game, unfortunately, was when he went to Columbus. Um, he you just saw some very errant throws out of him that week, but at the end of the day, I still think Drew Aller is one of the top three quarterbacks in the Big Ten. So I would have to give, if I'm picking a quarterback, I would have to give it to Drew Aller, in my opinion. Drew, will snake it back to you.
Yeah. So my third helmet sticker goes to who I believe is the best college football player in America, Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah,
Duh.
yeah.
He's a cheat code. I think
I couldn't be
with
the homer and say it though. I couldn't be the homer and say it. I couldn't
good
be the
call.
homer and
I
say it.
was worried you were gonna do it. Um uh but I honestly without Marvin Harrison, I don't know if Ohio State is where they are. I highly
Absolutely.
doubt it. I highly doubt they are where they are. This dude's a fucking cheat code. He is
He
he's
is
like
who we
Calvin
thought
Johnson, dude.
he
You
is who we
remember
thought we were.
when Calvin
Who we thought
Johnson
he
was at
was.
Georgia Tech, you just throw
Oh,
the ball up to the cheat code. This
yep,
dude is amazing. So he deserves
absolutely.
a sticker.
I don't disagree. I'm glad you did it and not me. Ethan, you're guy who just deserves it. Offense, defense, or special teams.
So I actually had these stickers labeled offense, defense, and dude because I
Yep,
figure he's just going to be
him.
an exemplary guy. He's him. He's the dude. He's Tory Taylor, the Iowa punter. I know everyone's going to think this is a spoof pick. This is just a sham. Bro's kicking the ball. He's got 2,913 punting yards this year, which is good for almost an entire 1,000 yards. He's 16 yards shy of 1,000 yards. Um, the next best guy.
Man, you took a page out of Pat McAfee's book for the brand, man. For the
Mm-hmm.
brand. For the
He's got
brand.
24 punts of 50 yards plus.
Jeez.
He's leading the nation or leading the league, the Big Ten in average at 47.8. Um, I think he holds a game high. I think he's punted 10 times in games. I think like 4 of the top 7 individual statistics for game high is his punting over anybody else.
Love it.
The dude is just tearing it up. He's gonna win the award for best punter.
Ray
I
Guy.
mean,
Absolutely.
He is the guy. He's the
He is
dude.
Ray
He's
Guy.
Tory Taylor.
Love it. Love it. Pat McAfee would be ecstatic to hear you say that for the brand.
Which is also another weird one here. So he has 61 punts on the year.
Jeez.
Now, second place in sheer number volume is Hunter Renner from Northwestern. He's got a 12 punt difference.
Oof.
Those 12 punts are at 1,007 yards.
Oof.
So,
Oof.
dude's averaging an entire football field almost in
And
more punts.
and his football team is 7-2.
Yeah.
How does that make any
Yeah.
sense?
They have 81 points for on offense, which is as much as Michigan State.
Wow.
Gross.
I do want to give
So
another
he's the
shout
dude.
out to Pat McAfee, for giving me the best roulette advice of all time. How about that red 18? Uh, I
With a gun and a
a
wink.
wink, and I was like, that's the coolest fucking shit I've ever seen. Um, and shout out to him for that because every time I play roulette at a casino, I always put at least one chip on red 18, just in case. Um, guys, I appreciate your time here this morning. Um, Going through all this, having a little bit, tough conversation there, regarding Michigan and your guys' great mid-season breakdowns. We should be back next week. Corey should be with us next week, and then also, guys, check out here later on today. Corey will be posting his 3 helmet stickers of the week via a short video. So please give that a look, as well as like this video, subscribe to the channel. It does help us all out. We're not trying to be at the show a national media, sports guys. The 4 of us are just fans who love talking college football, and we thought we'd bring our opinions to you. So if you guys love it, please just like and share the video and subscribe to our channel. Everybody have a great rest of your Sunday. I got to get back to being a dad. We'll see you guys next week.